All right. So, good morning, everyone. My name is Allie Dowds, she, her pronouns, and I am the consultant for special populations at the Massachusetts Board of Library Commissioners. I just want to thank you all for attending today's session, which is titled Access to Justice Virtual Court Services at the Library. Today's session will offer you an overview of the Massachusetts Trial Courts Public Library Initiative. That provides access to virtual court services through its partnerships with public libraries. Alexandra Furtado and Julian Santos are two experienced law librarians who will discuss the mission and goals of this initiative, what it means to be a public library partner, and the impact the program can have on your communities. You will also hear from three public libraries in different phases of implementing this initiative. We also welcome Libby from the Foxborough Public Library, Amanda and Lisa from the Chelsea Public Library, and Liz and Clayton from the Norwood Public Library. There will be time at the end for Q&A with everyone on this panel today. As always, a few quick reminders. I just briefly mentioned about how we cannot allow any type of note-taking software. This comes from the state of Massachusetts down, and as a state agency, we must follow that. The session is being recorded and will be shared. I have everyone muted during the general presentation, but please feel free to unmute yourself during the Q&A to ask questions or discuss, and you can use the chat feature at any time throughout to submit questions or comments. So with that, I'd like to welcome Alex and Julian. Thanks again for being here.
Of course. Thank you so much for having us, Allie. So very quickly, again, my name is Alexandra Furtado, and I'm the head law librarian at the Norfolk Law Library in Dedham. And I'm here with my colleague.
Yep, I'm Julian Santos. I'm the head law librarian at the Lowell Law Library.
And so we're here to just chat a little bit about the trial court law libraries, just some basics regarding who we are, and then the Public Library Initiative as a whole, how it started, where it's been, and where we're hopefully taking it. And we're very much looking forward to talking to you about that. And if you are interested in becoming a partner, please feel free to reach out to either of us. We also have a email dedicated just to this initiative, which is publiclibraryproject@jud.state.ma.us, which I believe is on our last slide, but we'll pop it in the chat as well. So just a quick just some information about the trial court law libraries. So we have 15 locations across the Commonwealth, and we are part of the trial court system in Massachusetts. We serve the bench, the bar, and the public. So we are public libraries. Anybody can come and visit us. We're okay. All right. Pick up where we left off here. Awesome. Obviously our collections include anything that really has a legal bent. We have books, periodicals, ebooks, and even audiovisual materials. And these are going to include things that are written for members of the public, like NOLO guides. Things are written for, our practitioners in law. So practice manuals, subject-specific treatises, and we also include materials on current issues that might have a bearing on law itself as well. We offer online databases, though unfortunately they are only available in the library at this time. We don't have remote services, even if you do have a library card with us, but maybe someday. We can also provide court documents and sample forms, and we'll chat about that in just a second when we also talk about the court service centers, our sister department. We do offer, as I mentioned, a library card and borrowing privileges. If you live, work, or go to school in Massachusetts, you can get a library card with the trial court law libraries and check out documents. And that also gives you some access to ebooks remotely from your home or public library or office. And then we do have interlibrary loan, both within our library system. So, for example, if you are a patron at the Norfolk Law Library, but you're interested in a book that only the Lowell Law Library has, you don't have to drive all the way up to Lowell unless you want to go visit Julian. He can send that down to me, and you can pick it up at your kind of home library. So, or if we don't have a book at all, we can always go to OCLC WorldShare, which is great. So we always love to talk about our Law About pages because this is a resource that we're very proud to offer to everybody. So very quickly, the Law About pages are something that we have created and curate, and we review at least once a year, but most likely more often, depending on what laws are being updated and amended. And we have over 190 of these, and with new ones coming in all the time when we feel like we need to have a new page. So those are available right on our website. You can find an A to Z index of all of the topics, or you can go kind of from these larger guides down into the relevant page that works for you. So for example, here's our Massachusetts law about name changes. Hi, Allie, nice to be back. So most of the Law About pages are going to look something like this. So we have kind of what we call a best bet at the top, which is going to be a resource that is free, open to the public. You don't have to log in. You don't have to visit a legal database in order to access, honestly, any of these materials. So the best bet, again, is going to be something that's going to answer a ton of different questions. So you can click on that and probably get your question answered. And then we're going to get into the Massachusetts laws. Well, this one has court rules regarding this, but no federal laws. But if there are federal laws regarding name changes, we would have that on there as well. We would have selected cases that might settle a specific or more detailed question regarding this topic. And you can read these cases in full text from these links. And then we'd have web sources. So these are going to be materials that are available on the internet, again, free, open to the public, that we have vetted. We know that they are accurate and up to date. So while you see some of these things like the U.S. State Department, we also have Mass Legal Services on here, a blog from the Stonewall Center at the UMass Amherst, that kind of thing. And these are the materials that we're double checking and making sure are accurate and are going to give you the best info. The only thing that might not be immediately available on this page is the print sources, because as you can imagine, they're materials that we have in our libraries. Though we do have one of these available as an ebook. So if you did have a trial court law library card, you can click on that ebook available with library card link and access that with your trial court law library card. But otherwise, these links are going to go to our catalog. You can see what libraries have it, what libraries might have their copy checked out, and you can always put something on hold again with your library card, or come in and take a look at it even if you don't have a card. So I mentioned the court service centers because we work with them very closely. They don't have as many locations as we do, but they do also offer a virtual registry, which is great. And I just wanted to chat about them for just a second to kind of talk about our differences, especially if a patron is coming into your library and asking who would be best to reach out to. Yes. Oh, sorry. And Clayton, you're completely right. Library cards are free to anybody who lives, works, or goes to school in the Commonwealth. So you can definitely log in or request one for those. Back to the court service centers here. So the court service centers primarily help with assisting filling out court forms and explaining court rules and procedures. They can do this because they have attorneys on staff, whereas we are librarians and we do not have attorneys on staff. However, those attorneys are not representing people, so they still can't give legal advice, but they can sit down with somebody and help them fill out these court forms and that kind of thing, which is super helpful. They cannot assist those who already have an attorney, whereas we can at the trial court law libraries. And generally, when you're looking for legal research, like what was this law a couple years ago, let's look at some case law that might talk about this particular topic, you're going to want to send people over to the trial court law libraries rather than the court service centers. Lastly, they are also more limited into what they can help with. We can help with any Massachusetts law questions or legal information questions, whereas the court service centers generally help with family law. So basically everything but not adoption, because that's a very complicated process that someone most likely should get an attorney for. Name changes, correction of vital records, landlord and tenant matters in housing court. Civil commitments, Section 35, guardianships, voluntary administrations, but not other types of probate, abuse prevention or harassment prevention orders, and small claims. So they can help with a lot. And these are primarily the places where people are representing themselves. So we love the court service centers, and they provide a great service regarding that. But if there's anything in the Superior Court, anything criminal, or any of the other topics that they don't cover, feel free to send people over to the trial court law libraries, and we can try to help them as best we can. So, to the star at hand, the Public Library Initiative. So the defining goal of the Public Library Initiative has always been to remove barriers to maximize the public's access to court services, from the very beginning. And I'll talk about kind of the multiple origin stories here. But as I just mentioned, a ton of litigants are coming to the trial courts and representing themselves. This has been the case for a very long time, and the numbers are only going up as far as we are seeing from our statistics. So for example, I have the stat here that 92.9% of defendants in civil housing court cases have represented themselves in 2023. And that has been about the same as, I believe I found a statistic from 20 years ago, and it was 91%. So a lot of people in housing court, in family and probate court are representing themselves, and that's already so difficult. So we're trying to make this as easy as possible to connect people to court services in a place that they feel more comfortable, and allow this process to go even faster, or better for them. We're not attorneys. We can't help provide them with advice, but we can connect them to those resources. Other barriers that people are experiencing, like transportation, lack of childcare, lack of stable internet or computer access, or even the digital literacy to connect to those types of things. And then physical access. A lot of the court buildings are in historical buildings that do not provide great handicapped access or general other kind of physical access. And then once you combine these types of things, a lot of people, might not have transportation, and they might have physical access needs. So it is great to partner with our lovely public library partners, because oftentimes they are on a bus route or another type of public transportation, and they have generally been updated in ways that the court buildings might not have. And so they can provide assistance or support in a lot of ways for these types of barriers. So as I mentioned, this initiative has a couple different origin stories that I've heard so far. So the main two appear to be that our manager, Bobby Fabrizio, had been working with the Boston Public Library to include some sort of legal kiosk with them, and was in talks about having some sort of permanent service that we would provide to them to connect them to court services. At the same time, in Norwood, the Norfolk Probate and Family Court were working with the Morrow Memorial Library about allowing people to access virtual hearings at the library. And so basically the Access to Justice Commission heard about all these different initiatives that were all happening in and around the time of COVID. And they kind of took over the program and then expanded the program afterward, which was fantastic. And so that's how we got a bunch of our other early partners like Milton, Chelsea, Randolph, Quincy, that kind of thing. Unfortunately, there was some staff turnover at the Access to Justice Commission, and through our manager's manager, and the Access to Justice Commission sent it back to the trial court law libraries. So we're so happy to be in charge of this initiative again, and we're looking forward to working with even more public library partners. And with that, I will hand this over to Julian.
Thank you, Alex. So continuing on with the evolution of the Public Library Initiative, specifically once it had been readopted back to us as librarians, we have looked towards expanding this program specifically so that it is providing access to other trial court virtual resources, and not just the virtual court hearings, which were the initial goal of the program. So Alex had gone over some of what these are already. So Zooming with a law librarian, if they have any legal reference questions, we can help that way. The court service centers do have locations in person, but a lot of the traffic that they see is done through their virtual, which is also available on Zoom. Different courts offer virtual registries where court users can interact with assistant clerks or other staff in housing courts or probate and family courts. Not every court offers this, but it is still a really great way to meet that accessibility demand that a lot of court users need right now. On top of that, there's also the Department of Revenue has a child support virtual counter that can interact with court users who are dealing with child support payments, modifications, or contempt orders. And then there's also translator services for court hearings via the Office of Language Access, where somebody who speaks a different language besides English can request that accessibility so that whatever they are trying to litigate, whatever they are trying to communicate to the courts can be done so in a way that doesn't keep them from not seeking the justice that they need for the court action that they have at the moment. So currently we have 21 partners throughout the state. It's likely that this actually might change tomorrow. We are in a lot of talks with a lot of libraries. So it's been a lot of back and forth. Like Alex had said, we have a specific email address, publiclibraryproject@jud.state.ma.us, where our outreach committee can check in with everybody who is going through the step-by-step process to become a partner. So I wanted to go over some of the requirements to join. If this sounds like something that your public library might be interested in joining in, there's only just a couple of requirements. So the main one is the technology and hardware. So this requirement involves having either a desktop, a laptop, or a tablet with stable internet access and video and audio capabilities with printer access. So any court user that wants to Zoom should be able to have the video, should have the audio, be able to speak. And then we also looking for headphones or a semi-private or private space available in the public library that people can book either in advance or some sort of accommodation so that they can have this private access to the courts during video hearings or working with the court service centers or other virtual registries. Another requirement is that we would like you to advertise the Access to Justice website on your website so that quick reference links can be made available on all of the devices that you have and on your website for public use. And then we also have a signed acknowledgement of terms that just kind of goes over all of these requirements. And you would just send that to our public library project email. Secondly, we would ask that you promote the public library initiative in your library. So we encourage that in order for your patrons to know what is available. We have worked with our translation services in order to produce signage and pamphlets for your community, whatever demographics you have, whatever needs that you need in order to promote this initiative. We also will come in person to meet with you and your staff and to discuss any physical requirements, signage placement, and any other requests and accommodations that you might need. So here's an example of what we mean when we say a link to the Access to Justice page on your library. So the Morrill Memorial library has this as an example. Says they're proud to partner with the Massachusetts Trial Court System. There's a link to the Access to Justice website, and it offers also some other links, including one to the Office of Language Access. The Morrill Memorial Library is a library that does offer public space, and they do have links to reserve a study room and a phone number in order to request one as well. And another example here with the New Bedford Library, again, a link to the Access to Justice website, and then links and information to study rooms and some of the court services that they can use. Here is the Access to Justice Resources website that you would link to on your website. It has a link to the language accesses, how to get in touch with law librarians, and a lot of other information related to how to access hearings, how to get access to more information related to the courts, financial statement information, and then an email to the Access to Justice Department to ask more questions. So what does this get you? The great thing about the initiative is that there are benefits to everyone. For the patrons, it gives them convenient access to the courts without having to visit the courthouse. This means that they won't have to figure out childcare. They won't have to figure out travel. They just know that they have to go into their town or city's public library in order to attend a hearing or to get help with paperwork. For you, the public libraries, this gives you the benefit of adding access to justice as a core value of your library's mission. In addition, you'll be able to have access to some of our specific legal resources. So again, that would be chatting with us, that would be access to some of the print sources that Alex highlighted in our Law About pages, and just really a free and ongoing dialogue with us and any of the legal resources that you or your patrons might need. And then for us, there's a benefit as well, which is that we get to further progress access to justice, this initiative and what it stands for the courts, for us as staff, and then also for our court users. Speaking a little bit about our expansion and our future goals, since relaunching the Public Library Initiative this year, we have partnered with new libraries, highlighting a few of them here, which is Framingham, New Bedford, Foxborough, Stockbridge, Natick, and again, there's a lot more in the works. We're really trying to target rural areas that do not have as much of the resources that more populous areas have, whether it would be limited access to public transit, or limited internet access in general. So some of these would include Worcester County, Plymouth County, and the Berkshires. But for us, at least when it comes to the fundamental goal, which is that the sky's the limit, or in this case, it would be the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. So the actual presentation that we have here, we're going to figure out how to get this out to everybody who would like it. This is just some of the links that we've talked about that would be part of it. And then finally, opening up to any sort of questions. I did want to say very briefly that we've had discussions within where we talk about how is semi-private defined as opposed to private. So an example would be, for example, in Berkshire County, a lot of the public libraries out there, some of them are so small that it literally is just a living room in someone's house. So how can you really meet the definition of private or semi-private if you're interested in joining this initiative? And the way we kind of discussed it is that this would be somewhat interpretive as far as how the public libraries can meet an accommodation for somebody who's looking to use it, and then how that is registered for us. So for example, a public library may say, well, we have a floor that has some seats and some corners that are typically private. So in a sense, we would say that this meets the definition of semi-private. So if you have those types of concerns of whether or not you would technically meet that definition, please feel free to reach out to us. We're happy to figure out some way, some accommodation to make sure that you can be added to this initiative if you want to.
Thanks, Alex and Julian. And quick apologies from me. There's nothing like getting the blue screen of death when you're hosting a webinar and your computer shutting down. So appreciate you just continuing to move forward, and I'm back. So I'm now going to turn it over to Libby O'Neill from the Boyden Public Library in Foxborough. Libby and Foxborough have just started out. They're in the very early stages. So a really good voice to hear from for those of you who may be considering kind of what's next, those first steps. So Libby, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Great. Thank you, Allie. Hi, everybody. So yes, we are in the very beginning stages. We kicked this off on September 17th. So far, we have not had any interested parties, any patrons wanting to take us up on this. However, we're ready when they are. So just to sort of talk about like the initial steps and getting started. I heard about this idea at a conference. I can't remember which one, but I believe Clayton was presenting a few years ago on this access to justice. And I just thought it was a great idea. It really does fit into our mission to remove barriers and help patrons in any way that we really can. And so it's sort of been on my wish to-do list to get this going at the Boyden Library. And then an email came out recently and I was like, this is my chance to get it started. So I met with Alex to see how we could get it started and what we needed to do. And some of the things, we have a meeting room, a small conference room right off the admin offices. So one thing we wanted to keep in mind is that we didn't want to make it public because we didn't want just anyone sort of booking the meeting room. So on our webpage that we have them contact one of our staff members to reserve that room for people that want to use for this initiative. And that is helpful because then not everyone can use it. And the room is not very often used. We do have staff using it occasionally, but we can relocate staff if we need to. So we do have that space for people to use. We did buy, we thought about having a shared laptop to use throughout, but we really wanted a dedicated laptop. So we did buy a new laptop for this initiative. Obviously we have Wi-Fi in the building at the library. We did buy new headphones. So we have the laptop and the headphones just ready to go for people to get started. We put shortcuts on the new laptop like Zoom and the Massachusetts trial courts website for a shortcut to get to them. Alex was really helpful to provide a lot of websites and guidance. And so we created a web page that is on our site. I will include it here. Let's see what else we have here. And then just really getting like the staff buy-in to like help promote it. I mean, there was not really any training for staff other than to make sure that they were aware of what we were going to now be providing and like who to contact in order to use the laptop in the conference room. But really just making sure that they were aware of it. We have a brochure, we have a poster downstairs in the near circulation, so that they're aware of it, because the circulation is the frontline staff that's going to get most of the questions. So we do have that, I think promoting it on social media. So the person that does that, so just having everyone be on the same page and be aware of it. I think that's it. We also recently just got the institutional e-card. We got set up with that so that we can offer it to any of our patrons in the library. But I think that's it. Again, we're just starting. We're really excited to be a part of this, and I'm sure that other libraries will have a lot more input. But thank you.
Libby, can I ask you a quick question? Because
Yeah,
I
of course.
feel like a lot of libraries might be wondering like time commitment to like getting this moving, getting this off the ground. Could you talk maybe just a little bit about, yeah, like the staff time that was committed to getting this started?
Yeah, I think mostly just the promotional stuff. So like getting the website set up, getting the brochures, um, and then just sort of promoting it through newsletters and social media, and maybe I think we put something in the newspaper. So um, not too much time, but I would say maybe for the website, I'm not a website kind of person, so it would take me a lot longer to set up, but probably like an hour to do that, and then just promoting it, which is what we do anyways, you know, in the job for programs. So really not that big of a heavy lift for, especially for the impact that it will make, hopefully once this catches on. And I think we're the closest library to us that is doing this is Norwood. So I feel really good that we're able to make an impact on our not just Foxborough, but also surrounding, immediately surrounding towns. Because as of now, hopefully soon others will join, but as of now, there aren't any other immediate libraries that are doing this.
Libby, thanks so much. And there was just a quick question follow-up. Somebody just asked, could you just further explain the institutional e-card?
Yeah, I'm going to probably tap Alex in for this because we did sign up for it. We haven't, I don't think, used it yet, but she can probably have more information on that.
Perfect.
Sure. So
Thanks, Libby.
yeah, Julian just mentioned or just popped in a link to our ebooks in the chat. So generally, this is an option that we share where I think Julian was talking about increased access to our collections. And one of those things is through what we call an institutional e-card to our ebooks. And so we do ask, it's part of the acknowledgements, or the acknowledgement partnership form that you would sign that says that you would only provide it in person in your library. And there are a couple other stipulations there, but basically you can use that to access the remote services without having somebody log in or apply for one of our own e-cards, or I'm sorry, one of our own library cards. And so that would give access to things like the annotated Mass General laws. There's ABA titles on there. There's NOLO titles on there. And so I definitely recommend taking a look at our ebooks. And if you are a partner, then we do provide an institutional e-card that allows you to use that. Yes, and the Boston Public Library also has one. So yeah, we're in the process of issuing those to all of our current partners.
Thanks, Alex. So the next library that's going to speak, it's Amanda and Lisa from the Chelsea Public Library. And they've been going at this a little bit longer. And we actually Alex recommended having Chelsea here to talk about patrons who actually came back several times to use this service as they were navigating their way through a court case. So really talking about the patron experience here. So Amanda and Lisa, thank you.
Yeah, so we've had the trial court laptop set up since about 2022, and throughout the time we have had patrons who have like come in for one court case and then like repeated that throughout their different I guess hearings. And then, you know, like time would elapse and then maybe they would come back for another court case later on, hopefully not, but you know, people who do use it, which is not a lot of people, but you know, the people who are using it are really like utilizing it. And just to note, our space setup is what I would consider semi-private. We do not have like private meeting rooms or things like that. So really our laptop is like in a cubicle in a quieter section of the library. And we do have like a room divider that we could set up. And then also the headset to, you know, help with their privacy. But yeah, I would say, you know, the people who have used it have been really appreciative, but it's not something that we're like making reservations for to utilize.
And a question that came up in the chat that I thought you both might be able to answer a little bit was, is there like a typical length of how long these virtual court cases or the use lasts, especially if there's restrictions around whether it's private rooms or computer use? Do you have an idea?
I don't think we've ever had anyone here for longer than 2 hours. You know, sometimes they go very fast, like they're waiting for a little bit. Most people come in, they like to get set up first, like make sure everything is working. And then the time of their case usually is not, I wouldn't say like significantly long.
Yeah, and another question for you that, and any of the libraries can jump in, but how much technical or informational support do you typically have to provide to the patrons for this service?
I would say not much. Most of the patrons who are using it do have like the awareness of how to like use Zoom and things like that to a degree, but maybe don't have access to the like a stable internet connection or things like that. But usually I will go over and like I'll get them set up. We'll open up the Zoom window. I'll see if they need help typing in their meeting ID, and then it's pretty hands off from them.
Nice. And the kind of second part to this question was, have you ever experienced maybe like follow-up research questions from that patron?
Not necessarily. Usually when someone is asking a question about the resources, I direct them to the website, and then I also let them know like that they could move forward by talking to like the trial law librarians themselves. And so hopefully they follow up with them.
And that's actually a great point. As you were talking, I was thinking about on one of the slides that Julian was talking about, what part of the service is, and correct me if I'm wrong, but is access to trial court librarians. So if people are needing additional, in this case, say like research support, they have that as part of the service.
Yes, and that's one of those things that I like to promote, and also just like, the ease of going there, and like the website is very well set up, and I do think that it is user friendly, which makes it a lot easier for patrons to come in and be like, "Oh, I want to look into this topic," and then, they navigate that rather than somebody coming in and wanting to look at a law book specifically, and I'm like flipping through the index.
Mhm. Yeah, actually, Alex, this is making me think of it. I'm blanking on the resource page where it's like all the subjects that's on like the trial court websites. I know you promoted this before, and it's like a really user-friendly way to access legal topics for
Yeah,
like the
our law about
layperson.
pages. I'll pop
Thank
a link
you.
in there as well. Yeah.
Yeah. Amanda and Lisa, thank you for your perspective. I'm going to actually turn it over now to Liz and Clayton from the Norwood Public Library. So,
Thanks, Allie.
thank you again.
I had one other question for Amanda and Lisa that came up in the chat that might be helpful before we switch gears, and that was if they've ever had somebody come in at the last minute without enough notice and how they handled that situation.
I would say that most people, because it's not heavily utilized, I would say, and also because it is in a semi-private space, that we are usually able to accommodate that. I will say most people do call me in advance and they're like, "Oh, here's my court dates," and they'll like try and make sure that we'll be open, and we don't have any foreseen like internet technical, what is the word for this, updates happening.
Glitches.
Yes. But yeah, so most of the time we are able to just accommodate things like on the spot.
Great, thanks.
Great.
So,
All right, good.
yeah, well, so Liz and I are here to talk about being the first public library to join the Access to Justice Initiative, and then the recent relaunch. We're so glad to have the trial court law libraries with Alex and Julian and the whole team leading the way now, which is great. We're there through the whole personnel changes and everything with Access to Justice and the commission, which has been around. Access to Justice as a commission has been around, I believe, for over 30 years. So it's there is a long history of trying to improve residents of the Commonwealth access to and improve their engagement with the justice system. So we're really proud to join that and to lead in the way. my point to be here today is, the questions about what do you do if people show up? That's a really natural question to have if they show up without any notice. We had concerns at the beginning about, are they going to bring lots of drama? Are they going to be involved with some kind of case that, we're all of a sudden going to have, we don't have the security that a courthouse does. And so that was we had that similar kind of anxiety. And so Liz and I really want to come and speak from the experience of, we had those worries, we've been with you, we're here to address and answer and help you think through any of the hypotheticals and reassure you we've not had those kinds of experiences to date. It's a public library, we deal with people all the time, we realize this is really a service that we've been providing, to people without our knowledge for a long time. And it's now we get credit for doing it, we have a little more awareness and we're able to help. So the main thing I want to do is just be that friendly face that says, hey, join us. Let's answer any questions you have. Liz can talk about the technical experience in the front line, but if you're having a hard time if you are a director and want to talk to me, or if you're having a hard time talking to your director, talk to me and I'm happy to help troubleshoot what your concerns may be and how we can blow them out of the way. So there's one thing I wanted to put a plug in before I pass the mic to Liz, and just make ourselves all available to questions. One of the great resources that Alex mentioned earlier was the language interpretation services for the legal system. And I hope when people are thinking about that, if you are not already part of the Massachusetts Library System language line, I encourage you to sign up for that too. And I'll put a link in the chat for that, because as I assume pretty much everybody in this call is in a library that's a member of the Massachusetts Library System. You can sign up with this service and get amazing support for over 240 languages. It's as easy as picking up a phone and you get an interpreter on the call really quickly. We've had personal experience here, and it's just a great resource. So I'm really grateful that they're doing this for law. It's awesome that they're doing this for across the board. Ali beat me to putting the tag in. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Clayton. Hi, my name is Liz. I'm head of adult services here in Norwood. So to situate us, if you've never been to Norwood before, we're about 31,000 residents. We're kind of the bottom edge of the Minuteman network. So we get residents from a couple of different Sales and Old Colony who come to our library a fair bit. We have a bus line that runs through town all the way to Walpole that goes, other end of it is up in Forest Hills and Roslindale. And we also have a commuter rail line that goes, I think, to South Station.
Foxborough to
Yeah.
South Station. Yep.
Yeah. So we do have some commuting, and we also have 95 and Route 1. So we're kind of really centrally situated for a lot of different towns. So we kicked off, I think, in 2022. We had a moment of false memory. We're all hallucinated that we started in 2021. No, it was 2022. And let's see. So I would say that over time, we have found that we have never run up against our 2-hour time limit. We started out, I think it was the shiny new resource, right? So right off the bat, we got a lot more use than we get now. That's kind of our current challenge, is we've had the service for a few years and people are kind of so used to it that it's become a little bit background to them. So how are we going to bring this up to the fore for people? But things have changed over the years. For instance, we now have our Zoom with a law librarian service with our partners at the law libraries. We have that linked on our public calendar. And so I think we're seeing that some of our folks are going that route to get answers to questions rather than coming through us. They're just going straight to the source, which is great. They're getting great resources that way. Early on, I think we helped people navigate the Access to Justice website and links more than we do now. We just don't tend to get those questions as much. Doesn't mean they're not using those resources through our website though. Think of it, we're librarians, we work really hard to protect people's privacy. We don't want people to have that barrier of, I need to identify that I have this really sensitive need and that's the only way I can get help and I need to say it at the public desk or anybody can overhear me. We try to build it to be self-service as much as we can. We're having a little bit of trouble tracking our website stats just at the moment, but the first couple of years, the Access to Justice page on our website was top 10 or top 11 links for our entire website. Ahead of how do I get a library card was how do I get legal help. So that's, I think, fairly telling that we are helping people even if they're not coming and identifying themselves at our public desk that they needed the help. In terms of how logistically this works out, so we have 2 study rooms, I'm sitting in one of them, that are like a 4-seater situation. People can book those through the website. We have a study pod, which is a single-seater that can be booked through the website. And we also have overflow spaces that technically you have to go through a staff member to book, but we're happy to put people in there if they need it, if our other study room spaces are in use. And we certainly have called on those spaces as overflow when people have come in last minute and needed a space and not have booked in advance. I will say, you're probably gonna get more last minute use than booking in advance use. That's been our experience. Oh well. But again, people don't need to identify that they're using legal services when they book a study room. So people could just say, I want to book a study room, and you'll never know that it's actually to use your private space for attending a virtual hearing or accessing the court service centers. So you may already be having people use your libraries for this without having put in the extra work. So I think we're trying to cover all the questions people posted. We've never run up against the 2-hour limit. And we've helped people attend court in other states, or get emergency help after hours when there's been a domestic abuse situation. Never run into the 2-hour limit, but we have had people requesting last minute access to a space. Typically for booking a study room, you do need to have a library card with Minuteman, but if people identify, hey, I need to, contact a crisis center, I need to contact the court service center, I need to attend court remotely, we have made it very clear to all of our staff, just give them the laptop. We can print out a guest pass, give them the laptop. We have a dedicated laptop that we call our A to J laptop. So we circumvent the red tape to try to get people connected as much as we possibly can, lower that barrier. In terms of the tech help, I will say the most tech time you're going to do is updating Zoom. The Zoom app updates so frequently that is what we spend our most tech time doing when we're connecting people to services. And other than that, it's the same stuff you're used to doing. You're used to helping people print, you're helping people used to access a website. It's just that, nothing really above and beyond. I think I've covered just about everything. I will say, even if our numbers aren't, like I said, quite what they were when we first started, we know that we are helping people. We know that the quality of help and the impact that it has on people's lives is significant. As I said, we've helped people connect in emergency situations. We've helped people who are just really at a crisis point for what do I do next and who do I talk to? And just being able to help somebody in that crisis point get to a reliable source of information, it really, really is impactful for people's lives. So yeah, I hope you consider joining up.
Yeah, and just to build on exactly what Liz said, I think you'll note we never said anything about statistics. We honestly don't care about statistics. We're not going to pull someone's partnership because they haven't heard from, no one has specifically asked for a laptop. And so we don't care if you only have one person every year or if you have 5 people a week coming in. It's really just about providing the access to this program. And so you don't have to report back to us, though obviously we love hearing, stories of people using the program, but it really is just about access. And yeah, so don't worry about oh, no one has been in here for 2 months. That's totally fine. Maybe they're using the website, maybe they're using other related resources, and that's all we're interested in.
Yeah, the terms and the acknowledgement don't mention anything related to statistics because none of this is tracked on our end. Whether or not you decide to do your own statistics, that's for your location. But I think that, I wanted to thank everybody from Norwood, Chelsea, and the Boyden to come in and bring in their stories, because I think that these stories are, anecdotal, but in a way they give us a sense of the statistics, if they were collectible, how this actually looks like. And then obviously everybody asking questions, like Tom from Berkshire Athenaeum, about how this works and how they imagine this could work for their specific location. So
I would also encourage folks to think about how to do multi-purpose. Our study rooms, our laptops, they serve access to justice, but they serve other means as well. And I've heard of some libraries that have experimented with doing special kiosks sometimes for like health access or various things, and they've been really frustrated by the lack of usage and been unable to justify to their other stakeholders in the community the persistence of those dedicated stations. So the more that you can incorporate access to justice in the work that you're already doing, the more likely that you can sustain it long term. And the easier it is really to justify, because it's not a special allocated resource that you have a hard time documenting. It's a really valuable resource to the community, and it's so much more than what you do.
I just want to say a quick thank you to you all. And I think we have maybe a minute or two for one last question if somebody had one in the chat or wanted to unmute themselves. But while we're waiting to see if there's a last question, again, thank you for the insight and perspectives from each of your libraries. And I hope everyone on this call feels a little bit more inspired to at least click on the links and think about signing up with the trial courts. That would be
While
wonderful.
we wait, Allie, I'd like to ask everybody to remember the last time they stepped into a courthouse. And kind of, because if you don't step into a courthouse very frequently, you can probably remember your heart rate getting a little faster. Your palms get a little sweaty. You're maybe wearing some clothes that you don't wear that frequently because you want to dress up to go to court. And that's not how people dress to come to the library. That's not how people feel when they walk into the library. People are afraid, who's going to see them walking in and out of a courthouse. Everybody walks into the library. It brings such a different mindset to the court experience that cannot be overstated. And to really encourage you to provide that for the people in your community to improve their outcome. We can't say they're going to be more successful in court cases or anything like that, of course, but we can help them be prepared to have a better outcome for whatever happens. And how are they going to recover faster if they don't have the outcome that they were hoping for? How do we set the stage so they can have the best experience possible? And we're just so perfectly situated in public libraries to do that. There's a request yeah.
So yeah, there's one question on here is if there's a resource like this for immigration law. And just really quick to Jill's question about links and all that. Yes, I will work with Julian and Alex to make sure I send out not only the recording, but appropriate links, important information from the chat, and we'll get that to you as soon as I can. So to the question about immigration law, Alex or Julian.
So this would generally be for Massachusetts law, and immigration is going to be a federal administrative process, so it's a little different. However, yeah, in no way are we limiting this. If they do somehow have a virtual hearing for their immigration court date, they are very welcome to use the service. But as far as I know, I don't believe that they do a lot of virtual hearings. But I mean, again, if they have that, they're very welcome to do that. They can also reach out to us and we can find legal resources for that topic. And yeah, somebody also mentioned they just did a fantastic program specifically for immigration for public libraries, or basically what you need to know with some lawyers, I believe from the Social Law Library, or at least hosted by them. That was fantastic. So I definitely recommend taking a look at that and the resources that they provided for that program.
Yeah, even though this initiative is sponsored by us in the Massachusetts trial courts, we 100% would not restrict your ability to connect your patrons with other courts. Like, this is within the spirit of providing court users access, and that is access wherever you can find it. We're all professional librarians. I think we all know where we can find other states and whether or not they have the ability to do virtual hearings. Like, we have that reference experience. So 100% do what you can for your patrons.
And for just really quick, the Social Law Library that MBLC hosted on Tuesday of this week, I think, Tuesday. I will share out the recording link, and it comes with a password as well. This is the second round of this. So there was one back in, I think, the spring, and then there was this most recent one. So I'll send out the recording for the most recent one, along with all the other resources that we'll be sending out from today. So if you didn't attend it, please definitely go back and watch it. It is very useful.
I just put a plug for Luce in the chat as well. because if people are looking for immigration help, they're doing a lot of work to focus attention on immigrant rights. So if you're already familiar.
And they're one of the resources that was mentioned in that program too. So
Yeah,
they're great.
I can see
and then
that
I did.
Um,
Oh, sorry.
Madison.
Go ahead, Julian.
Yeah, thanks. Madison has a question about in-person programs. So all of our libraries are public libraries. So anybody can come in person in order to meet with us. We're open 9 to 12, closed from 12 to 1 for lunch, and then open again from 1 to 4. Some libraries will have in-person programs, or for example, the head law librarian at Brockton will do in Brockton Public Library law library hours but that's a program that they have set up. So but we are public, so we can say you can come in when we're open, and again, we can't give advice though, so we're not attorneys, but we have a wealth of information and resources that we can share, and then we also have along with those resources things to connect them to attorneys or legal aid organizations that could provide them the advice that they're looking for.
Thank you, everyone. It's 12 o'clock. So please go enjoy your afternoons. And I really can't thank you enough for everyone who participated today and for all the great questions. Be on the lookout for all the resources coming your way soon. So have a good afternoon. Bye, everyone.